with that, I'd like to introduce to you Susan Berhane. Susan will be moderating our town hall. She is from Bristol Myers Squibb, where she is a part of the global patient advocacy team. Her previous experience in the public and private sector, now she works in patient engagement. So please give her a round of applause.
Good morning, everyone. I'm not going to stand behind the podium. Should I use the podium mic? No, that's here. Thank you so much. Hello. I'm sure my voice can carry on its own, but I'll use the mic. So good morning, everyone. I like to start off any time that I have the opportunity to speak to people to just forewarn everyone that I am a former fourth grade teacher, so I have no problem calling on people. I have no problem reprimanding people, changing your sticker from green to yellow. And I am hoping that we can all contribute in this wonderful conversation today. And thank you, Camilla and Aki and Arisima and everybody else for welcoming me here today. I know she gave this lovely background bio, but I'd like to, connect with you on a more personal level, if that's okay. So my name is Susan. I am the oldest of 10. While we do not have, fortunately or unfortunately, we have in our family a history of sickle cell disease, and I have lost 3 siblings to that disease. So I say 10, but 3 are no longer with us. And I understand the importance of advocacy groups. When I think of what the Sickle Cell Disease Association of America has done for my family, how they continue to show up, how they continue to support, how they continue to educate and encourage us, I can't help but feel somehow more than grateful to be able to talk with you all today. So I hope as we get through this town hall discussion, you know that we are here to support each other, and you know that more than ever, the stories we share, the way we engage with each other, and the way we uplift each other means more than you probably can realize. And the stories do go on and on and on. So with that, we are going to start our town hall discussion. Okay. All right. So reading is fundamental. Reading is essential. So here we have a question on what were the most helpful resources that you used in preparation for or to learn about your treatment? And I want you to just take a moment and think about what that means to each of you here. Even now, as you're on the other side of it, when you think back in hindsight, and we all know hindsight is 2020, what are some of the resources that you found were really helpful that you're willing to share with us today? You never know who's listening or in the audience that may really need that insight from you. So, do we have any volunteers on our first question? Yes.
So, I, when Lisa was diagnosed, I did a lot of research on my own. The internet is not always your friend. So I did a lot of research and found a lot of articles, which were helpful. But I have to tell you that in August, I actually reached out to Camilla. She was my first. She was my first contact to find out more about her story, just to see what could be the path for my daughter. And that's what led us here. So thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Is there anyone else that'd be comfortable sharing what resources helped them?
Hello.
This might not be the answer you're looking for, but I just want to draw a distinction between when I was first diagnosed and where I am now, because when I was first diagnosed, I was so close to death that I was too overwhelmed to do any research.
So if you want to get somebody on the mic, and then
And now I'm very proactive with research. I ask a lot of questions, and I just switched hospitals because I wasn't getting answers to my questions. You know, I would literally email a question and it would just be like radio silence for 3 weeks. And they'd say, and I just got the word no a lot. So I switched hospitals and I hear yes, and I get all the information I want. And it's in language I can understand, and that makes a big difference to me. So just drawing a distinction between the initial stage of being diagnosed and then when you live with it, you know, you sort of get up to speed, and all the resources are there if you are diligent in looking for them.
Would anyone else like to share a resource that helped you?
After we hear from Camilla, I'd also like to go back to what you were saying, if that's okay.
Good morning. Um, Even though it wasn't easy while undergoing chemo to concentrate and focus on research, I try to surf the web and read as much as I could. And one of the most significant finds that I attribute my progress to is the book written by Jane McClelland, How to Starve Your Cancer. She's on Facebook. She has like a following of 88,000 people on and a lot of YouTube information that I found from the doctors who were specialists on the subject, and especially the ones that I could understand in the plain English.
I will after I saw Camilla stand up.
Thank you.
I think one of the greatest resources for me is other patients. If I'm presented with information about a treatment or I'm going to start a new treatment, one of the first things I do is like comb the social media support groups for people who have had it. I know we're all different and we respond differently and we have different side effects, but I get kind of like raw feedback, not the oncology PC, polite way, I guess. And so that's been so helpful for me. I mean, just to hear it firsthand experience from a person who's gone through it before me. So I'm so thankful that we have an ability to, in this day and age, to just like reach out and collect the information from whatever source we need.
Forgive me, I just want to pause and take a second and go back to the young lady in the white. Yes. There was something you shared about the trauma of a cancer diagnosis and not being able to absorb the information right away or be able to seek out information. And I think that's something really important we need to focus on for a minute here. And I understand also it's one of the large main benefits of an advocacy group. When you were in that place of you were not able to seek out information, maybe you were not interested, or maybe you didn't know where to go, or maybe you were just in that shock of it all. What is a resource that helped pull you from that?
I guess to Camilla's point, you know, after a few months when the chemo started working and I was in a better place, I did sort of reach out to support groups and hearing from other patients. But when I was diagnosed, the treatment was not offered to me or discussed with me. I was just told, here's what you're doing. And I had a pile of papers, and one of them said prognosis not very good, and that stopped me in my tracks. I just thought I was given a death sentence. So, the first 3 or 4 months were very bleak and very, very challenging. But when, as I said, the chemo started to work and I started connecting to other people, I was able to evaluate my own experience, what was working for me, what wasn't working for me, what was working for other people. And as you can probably tell, I became very vocal, and that made the biggest difference. I'm extremely proactive, and as I said, I ask a lot of questions, and that's why I switched hospitals. I wanted answers to my questions.
Thank you so much. I think, yeah, there are some hands in the back.
Thank you. Good morning. And I think this is such an important question. And the answer, in fact, may be dynamic or changing. I think Camilla and Betsy's points are so important about reaching out to folks who are contemporaneously undergoing treatment. Speaking, I'm a patient with, as we'll hear a little bit later, with a history of stage 4 disease, but also a doctor. And a lot of what we rely on in the medical literature lags behind, sometimes by as much as 10 to 15 years for relatively rare conditions such as gastric cancer in this country, lags behind what the true contemporaneous experience is. And I think it's very, very important to reach out and solicit information from folks who are currently undergoing treatment. And I applaud Camilla, Betsy, and everyone else who has been through this process and is persevering. I will say, from the medical perspective, there have been attempts certainly to update the availability and currency of these resources. Two that come to mind in particular are a database called UpToDate, which is available as physicians. We use it, but it's also available on a quote consumer patient basis. And certainly there are a number of our partners in terms of professional oncology organizations have guidelines, including ASCO, and in particular the NCCN, National Comprehensive Cancer Center Network. They work very hard on updating guidelines frequently, including after meetings such as ASCO GI, where there may be breakthroughs. They'll try to incorporate those within a couple of months. So it's an attempt to at least address this important issue.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kirsten. And I just want to build on what's being said about folks connecting with other people who have gone through it. I think when I had already had surgery by the time I discovered the support group on Facebook, and it felt like my entire world opened up when I joined that group. I still sort of tentatively post, as we all have different levels of comfort in social media, but it's just been such a literally hopeful, right? The word hope, I think, is part of what drew me in, because I was really hopeless when I got my diagnosis. And it just showed that there's so much nuance to this diagnosis, and there actually are so many different tendrils of information that comes off of a gastric cancer diagnosis that you're not aware of when you're really given that experience. I think that Betsy described so well, where you're just told this is your option. I was given really one option as well, and didn't understand. And as a researcher, I was like, well, I want to know where are the variations here. Chemo is such a blunt instrument, and some of the surveillance tools that are used are as well. And it feels really isolating when you aren't aware of what the nuances are. And so I'm just so grateful for the Facebook group specifically run by Hope for Stomach Cancer that has truly made me feel not alone.
One more here and one more there, and then we have to go on to the next question.
Hello. I just want to touch on everybody's talking about connecting with other patients, and One resource that has really helped me out learning, new information that's out there is taking part in the support group calls that Aki hosts twice a month. I kind of just lurk on there and hang out and ask a couple of questions, but I've learned so much just listening to everybody else ask questions and listening to the doctors answer those questions. And there's a lot of commonality between all of our treatments, and there's a lot of differences also. But just hearing everybody's different situations and where they are in their treatments and how doctors are treating those and new things that are coming down the pike. So anyway, I just wanted to mention those real quick, and those have been a great help. So
I saw you with your hand up.
Well, so I'm David Hall. My wife Pam is my beloved patient here. But the question is in preparation for or to learn about your treatment. So after I'm sorry, the oh shit moment, when you find out that this is a road you're going down that you didn't ever anticipate. I mean, I give a shout out to. I'm just going to go ahead and mention them. I mean, the team at Moffitt Cancer Center. And they truly were a team, and we were a part of that team. And if you don't feel that you're not part of that team because you're the major player in that team, then you hopefully do have the ability to go elsewhere. And Moffitt, the folks there pulled us back from Dr. Google because you can get the scared out of you when you start looking at survivorship and so on and so forth, and your mind can go down a lot of different paths. And I think the team there did a fantastic job of pulling us back in and saying, this is what we're going to do. And part of that is to Pam's credit, and I think to some extent to mine, is we were, again, back to the team concept. I mean, you own this. All of us own this. And so you have to be your own advocate. And once you set those boundaries with the team, then the dialogue changes, because we know, and even we've had in our family others that just went along and 100% whatever the doctor said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm never going to question anything. Well, we asked questions, and we wanted to know what the expectations were, and we even triangulated that with other great facilities, Mayo and Baylor and so forth, and they were all worked together. And to that, I think that we lose sight of that a lot of us are sitting here because we've had fantastic care. And so that doesn't mean you shouldn't keep looking elsewhere, and we have. And our team has been part of looking at trials where we go outside of the family of medical care and go into somewhere else that we don't have the ability to explore on our own. That led us, and I guess Pam can answer this, but it was probably 6 months later after the oh shit moment that we met this group, and another level of care and team comes together. But in the beginning, we really were dependent, and thank goodness we were with a facility that was open to discussing and explaining why. And when we had questions, they answered them. And when we were looking elsewhere, they knew that and they were okay with that. We all came together for one cause.
Now I'm gonna let you slide with the use of the foul language this time. This time.
The
Has
sticker color.
Oh, thank you. But I think we're gonna have more questions. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I didn't know if you.
Thank you so much. Oh no, I'll be okay. Thank you. I think that's a good transition to the question of the satisfaction level of the information you received. And I understand how wonderful it is to be part of a great care team. I think I'm very fortunate living in this DC area, understanding that we have Lombardi Cancer Center here and we have Duke in North Carolina, and there's just so many great opportunities. But I'm also very aware of those who are in the pockets that may not have access to that or have to go great distances to have access to these wonderful care teams. And so there's an opportunity to look at what level of satisfaction, or let's talk about the word that doesn't feel so good, dissatisfaction, that you had with the information you received, especially if you went to the University of Google first, how overwhelming that might be. But does anybody want to share what information was something that really made them feel good and hopeful, or likewise, anything to kind of also steer away from information that might bring you down. How about we start with June?
June. There's June.
Yes. Thank you for sharing. Thank you so much.
I'm just trying to stay on green.
A student.
So I think that the most helpful resources, literally, for my daughter Jewel, who's not everybody knows she was 16, so she didn't have access to many of the options because of her age, simply just because she wasn't 18 yet. But when I got with Aki and she got us connected to Dr. Davis, who we're going to get to see a little bit later on today, but they were able to get her into the NIH, and that significantly extended her life. And it was just very important because many things weren't available to her until we were opened up to the NIH and Dr. Davis through Hope.
So what I'm hearing is you were satisfied with Aki and the information. Well, I'm just going to take a second there and clap for Aki for all the things that you were able to do for so many people. Thank you so much.
Hi, Aki here. So I was dissatisfied with my dad's original team of doctors. He was diagnosed in Los Angeles at a local community hospital, and they told him he had 6 months to live. And initially, they didn't even start with what your treatment is. They said, here is an advance directive. Just make your arrangements, and you're really old, so you probably shouldn't try chemo. And here he is, clinically cured 10 years later because I took him to an NCI institution that gave him hope. So I think that so many doctors are just so unaware of diagnosing and treating patients with a rare cancer.
That's important to share. I mean, we started off this conversation with focusing on what a comprehensive cancer center does, but also acknowledging how many people are within the community settings that might not have access to the certain level of support. And that's why the advocacy groups are important. I think it's important to say, speak aloud, truth to power, what you were dissatisfied with, and hopefully people who have a fear of speaking up or a question in their mind of, well, can I get another, a set of eyes on this? Do we make the drive? Do we make the flight? Do we even have the ability or the resources to make the flight? I think it's really important to acknowledge all of these feelings. So if there's anyone else that's willing to share what they were, gold stars for efforts for all three of you who raised your hands at once.
Thank you. In my wife's case, when she was in the hospital after just being diagnosed, the hospital originally assigned a particular medical oncologist to her to visit her. And this medical oncologist came to the hospital and obviously had not read her complete chart because there were some gaps that even I knew were incorrect. And basically, she said, we're going to do chemo on you and come to this location for chemo in 2 weeks. No information on it whatsoever. Just basically, this is what we're going to do. So that was dissatisfying to us. And I know a lot of other people would just trust their doctor, trust the first doctor that saw them. But if a doctor comes to you and doesn't give you information on options available, that's troubling to us. So we right away looked for a different doctor, a different cancer center, and we found one that actually was in our area, UC Anschutz, and the difference was just breathtaking because this doctor met with us for an hour and a half, went over different options that are available, went over clinical trials that are available, explained in detail, even with drawings, as to the kind of cancer and how it spreads. So that was a big difference. And so I think if you don't have a doctor that's willing to sit down with you and explain options, that's a big red flag.
Hi. Yeah, so I was highly satisfied with my the information I was received from my oncologists, from my my OBG oncologist to my medical oncologist to my surgical oncologist. Um, Dr. Martin, my OBGY oncologist, she was the one that rushed me into surgery and was like, we need to get this because they thought it was fibroids. But then once I came out of surgery and everything, and even after I visited her in the office for a checkup, she was, she didn't say yes. Before I went into surgery, she didn't say yes, it was cancer, no, it was cancer. She said we had to observe what it was before she can even say I had something that was like, she's like, it could be fibroids for all we know. So she was very knowledgeable on that. But then once I got out of surgery and she came in and spoke with me, she let me know. She's like, yes, it is cancerous. She's like, I don't know much about this type of cancer. So the doctor, the oncologist you will be seeing is very knowledgeable. So and they were all in the same network, which was I'm so grateful for. But she was the one that let me know about Krukenberg tumors and her knowledge on them and how those work. And then from there, when I saw my medical oncologist, Brian Denley, he was highly knowledgeable about everything. And he let me know, because I also wanted to do the holistic side. And he let me know, okay, if you do this route, I don't know much about that. I know the medical way and this and that. And he was very open to me seeing other doctors. He was not like, no, I felt like I was cheating on him because I wanted to go see another doctor. He's like, no, please do let me know. But he also has a lot of colleagues throughout all different types of medical facilities, which I was very blessed about. And he was like, yes, go see them. Yep. And he would play chess with them. He had to do peer-to-peer moments, and he would play chess and he would always win. And he was like, yeah, because I'm better. I'm like, that's what I want. But and he was very knowledgeable about the procedures, and then when it came to me getting my options of gastrectomy, he again was like, just like how Dr. Martin was, he's like, I have patients who've done this. I don't know the techniques of everything, but let me refer you to the ones I do know are very good about this. So I was highly satisfied about my education and the treatments I received. He let my family know everything.
Wonderful. A little bit of friendly competition is good. It's good. Over here.
One other resource, I've talked about it before, but I just went to any drug that I was on. I went to that drug company's website, and then most of them, have great resources on their website, and then an 800 number where you can call a nurse, and the nurse will explain to you quite a bit. They send you packets in the mail. And then it helps me go back to my doctor because I'm a little bit more educated. I don't have to get the basics from him. I got the basics from the drug company, the drugs that he recommended. And then the drug companies, they also gave me, I think I found Aki through Opdivo, not the opposite. So I'm pretty sure, it lists the support groups there, because prior to reaching out to the pharmaceutical companies, I only had the my local breast cancer community supporting me, and they tried, but it's different, and even Garden, that does my circulating tumor DNA. They will, after I get my report, I call them, they send me more, they send the local clinical trials, but then they'll send me more clinical trials. And then they set up a time for me to talk to one of their doctors. They won't go over my report. They go over everything that's offered. Your doctor, they won't tell you specifically about yourself, but they'll give you a lot of information, and they want to help you. Those pharmaceutical companies are not the bad guys.
Any other comments before we move on to the next question? Great. So our next question, What are some of the unmet needs or gaps in care that you experienced or observed as a gastric cancer patient? And I think we've started touching on some of it, just by some of the answers that you've shared. We hear a lot about maybe not receiving all the information or being discouraged possibly from seeking out more information or not knowing where to seek information from. But what are some additional gaps that you've experienced both on the patient and the caregiver side? Because I think, the caregiver journey is equally as important. So I saw you raise your hand first, so gold star for effort.
One of the things for me was, after I had my TG, was nutrition. That was a big one. They gave, I had a nutritionist, and they give you the standard packets, and we're actually working on something like that right now as a patient group to try to come together as people without stomachs, I guess, or with very little stomach, and give other patients information about what works for us. But it's such a wide range of foods that work for some people and not others that it's kind of hard to pin down. But at least there might be something. Right now, there's just not a lot out there, and I know that probably all of us struggle with that at some point. How to eat, what to eat, how to handle dumping and all that kind of stuff. So that was a big one for me, and it's still a big one. This is 2.5 years after my TG, so I think there's a big gap there.
To kind of piggyback on what he just said about nutrition, because that was probably the biggest gap for me after my gastrectomy, and ongoing, is the supplements that you should be taking. Do I need iron? Do I need B12? And you just don't know. And my primary care doctor can look at my blood work and give me some guidance on that, but he's not used to treating people that don't have a stomach. And sometimes when you take a pill and you don't have a stomach, you're going to metabolize that differently than everybody else. So I still kind of grope in the dark a little bit to understand what additional vitamins or supplements I need.
Yeah, I just learned something new about B12 today talking to Cam this morning. So
Yeah. I think that also goes for medications. A lot of primary care doctors don't know how a medication is going to work with your body without having a stomach. So that's been a little challenge for us. My daughter had the same issue. She went to an urgent care and needed antibiotics, and Dr. Wu is our doctor, and Dr. Wu had told her, have IV antibiotics, and the doctor gave her such a hard time, and it just ended up, I don't have time to explain to you, you have part of your stomach at least, and stormed out of the room. And she was like, luckily she's pretty strong-willed. And finally she said, I knew he went out there and researched, because he came back and he was apologetic, and I'm sorry, we'll get you hooked up right away. But patients shouldn't have to deal with that kind of attitude when they say, I don't have a stomach.
Besides the fact of Jill being under 18, and that was a lot of hurdles, but we were also in rural Georgia, and that is being served at a community level hospital. Is they really had no idea. I mean, absolutely none of how to treat, and honestly weren't interested in working with people or getting the information. It was kind of, it's our way, this is what it is. And it wasn't what she would have needed whatsoever. So luckily we were able to get to a different hospital with better people. But that I feel like that is huge for so many people in these smaller areas, not as and with isn't much money, not as many doctors, not much access, and it's really hard. I see many cancer patients that are in my hometown, and they don't have any access. They believe the first thing they hear from whatever doctor, and that's that. And then they continue to get sick, and it doesn't go well. And so I think that is such a thing that needs to be addressed, is more of the rural and community level, and being able to get access to more specialists.
We have counties in Florida. This is Florida, not the backwoods when you think about it.
They can't hear your mics.
We have counties in Florida that do not have doctors. I mean, zero.
Yeah, it's like right next to me.
So that's a challenge. In my comments earlier, I mean, we were extremely fortunate to live in the Tampa Bay area, and we're able to, like many of you, but not all of you, of course, we're able to get on airplanes and go and scout out other options, but realize that it's a scary thing, and just medical in general, in terms of serving the rural communities. And I know that's another discussion for another day, but that is a fact of life that's just unfathomable for me in this country.
And also, not just like, I know medical is like, there's gaps in the medical part, but just the community part in general. Like where I'm from, Dutchess County, New York, like you go online, you look for support groups, and you find, like these types of groups, but you don't find local, like, I want to be able to go into a little group and like, I'm an in-person type of person. I want that community feeling, and there's just nothing there. And my social worker agreed, and she's been trying her hardest, but she's one social worker for a whole entire oncology department. And it's just very like she keeps trying to get it and saying, they're like, yep, you're going to get approved from the state. Nothing. And they just like, same with the nutritionist, she's one nutritionist for the whole entire department. And it's very frustrating because like she's like, yeah, like, and it's like I'm like one of maybe 3 people in the whole department that has the gastric, but like even she wanted to just do one general cancer thing, but like it's frustrating because we just want that community feeling to be able to say, hey, let's go get a coffee and let's talk. But now I found one person that's our own support group. Yay! So we're getting there. That's what I'm really happy about, being able to participate here, because the connections, like, and my mom just wants to say something.
So I just wanted to talk about just general doctor knowledge, just in general. I mean, for instance, Alicia went to a GP. She was going to the GP for a while, complaining about issues. Not once did anybody say, well, maybe we should refer you to this kind of doctor because we're not sure what what you have. And I think this is the problem, just in general, is that our overall medical community who's serving as a GP really need to have a better way of understanding when these problems are presented, that it's not just acid reflux or it's not whatever, that there might be something more important here. And we need to understand and refer people. And, if we're wrong, okay. So, that's one of the things I would say. It's just people in general aren't focusing on, something more serious than just a GP would normally diagnose.
Just briefly, because I don't want to be beating the dead horse, but for me, the biggest unmet need is the lack of patient-facing language. In addition to living with a disease and managing it, you're expected to be a biochemist on day one. It's overwhelming. Your doctor, you have 15 minutes and you're like, what, the what, the what? And then you go home and you look it up, or you look at a CAT scan, and I've gotten better at it, and I'm not, an idiot, but there's just a lack of patient-facing language across the board that contributes to the feeling of being overwhelmed or being an idiot, so which isn't helpful.
Yeah.
So.
I have a couple things. One is so I am very fortunate to be able to go to a National Cancer Center, and it's been amazing. And also, I find it extremely frustrating that you can't schedule your own appointments. I don't know if other people have had that experience as well, but with a young child at home during the school year, having to coordinate travel, and I'm about an hour and a half away from where I would receive treatments. That was just incredibly difficult. And then I would get to the infusion center and there was always a 3-hour wait. And so it was an entire day affair. And I was very lucky to have people rally around me and really help. But I don't have parents. My partner doesn't have parents in the area to come and sort of help with childcare. And that was just really, really difficult trying to make that happen and coordinate all of those parts. So it's sort of ancillary to the, immediate care needs that you have perhaps, but that I feel like the whole person is not always looked at. And that also has to do with other chronic illness and things that were mentioned before about other medications are being taken or other conditions that happen. I'm a migrainer. I sometimes get between 10 and 15 migraines a month. And that became something that was in addition, it was really tough during chemo. I actually had way more every month that I was going through through treatment. And it was sort of like this, we're just focused on chemo. There wasn't really a discussion about the interactions of the drugs or what I might do, how to keep myself even further hydrated that I might normally be thinking about, et cetera. And now that I'm through chemo and sort of in the surveillance stage of my treatment, I'm experiencing really significant neuropathy. I didn't during my chemo treatment. And it's sort of like, well, we'll wait and see what happens. And I'm learning more from the support group from what people have learned anecdotally than really through my doctor. And that's really frustrating. I mean, just yesterday's presentation made me think, oh, we should be testing my B12 levels. We're not. And that's sort of shocking to me that I have to advocate for that, given the knowledge that we have about gastric cancer, stomachs, and B12 and the relationship there. The last thing that I have like a list of 4 things, but I'll cut it off here. The other thing I think is just the insurance piece. And I don't know if we'll talk about that with the next question as well, but with switching jobs in the middle of my care, I happen to be on my state insurance. I work for a municipal institution, was phenomenal. It was completely covered. My union had a relationship with the state where I didn't have to pay a cent. I just dealt with gas and tolls, to get there. My new insurance is a little bit different and just an absolute maze. And it makes me think about, I'm incredibly privileged to have been a part of a union and be able to have taken a full medical leave during the fall semester to be able to get through my chemo without having to work. That is not what everyone has access to, and they absolutely should. I know some people want to work to sort of keep I wasn't able to physically. Everyone's different, but I wish that everyone had access to that, and that insurance wasn't a barrier sometimes to the care that you need, because it's hung up my medications at times, procedures, et cetera. And I'm sure I'm not the only one in the room that's had that battle.
Are you sure you don't want to share your 4th point?
Briefly, I talk a little bit about this in my the monthly videos that came out, which was also an incredible resource. I will add that the YouTube video library for Hope for Stomach Cancers, I just poured through it at the beginning of, finding this group. But as a queer person and a member of the LGBTQ community, I don't always feel seen. I use both she, her, and they, them pronouns. And when I was filling out the intake forms for the care at the cancer treatment center where I am, they were, so much care was given to like, what's your gender? How do you identify? What pronouns do you use? And then I was just ladied and womaned, and lots of assumptions were made about my gender when I was in the hospital and since, and that has been a challenge for me.
And I know you were mentioning, and I get really nervous, so sorry.
Don't be nervous. Take a second.
Trying.
Let's take a second. Everybody, let's clap for her.
No. So my sister was a patient, and we're from Texas. And she was a patient at MD Anderson. And I have mentioned to a couple of people that I've met that, MD Anderson is known for being the best. Unfortunately, I don't feel it was. And looking back now, I think that because they are known all over the world, they're so overwhelmed. And I really feel that in my sister's case, if they were so overwhelmed and they couldn't take care of her the way that they should have just referred her out to someone else. And she listened, as someone said, you listen to your doctors, and she was one of those patients. She listened to the doctors. She followed their directions, like step by step. She didn't do anything else that they didn't advise. But although it was the best, I mean, it's known as the best one in the nation, um, I just feel like they have so many patients. They are not taking care of each one as they should. And I don't know what I can do to bring awareness to that, but they are overwhelmed with patients, and it's I don't know the right word, because there are other hospitals in Texas, right? If they're not going to take care of someone the proper way, then just refer them out. But also, as patients, to switch hospitals. And you mentioned Dr. Wu. We did get to see her. We flew out to California. Unfortunately, at that time, she was the third opinion, and it was too late. But she did say, "I wish I would have met her sooner," you know, because she could have done more. And I really do feel like she is very empathetic, knowledgeable. Um, she was the only doctor throughout the whole 2-year process that not only showed knowledge of the medical field, but showed that she had a heart, that she was human, that she had empathy. And I just wish we would have met her sooner. So I'm so happy that you guys are seeing her.
So fortunate. So fortunate.
Thank you. I don't mean to pile up against MD Anderson, but I was there twice, and twice they made no difference. My assumption that when you come to the doctor's office with the expectation that he is second after the God, and whatever he says or she says, you have to follow, you're doomed. That's my assumption after 5 years, plus 5 years experience with the ordeal with stomach cancer. I've seen many people who I was talking to who called me through a word of mouth. And if they said, "Oh, no, my doctor is very good, I'm going to do whatever doctor said," they're gone. That's one thing. The other thing of the subject, back to our discussion regarding nutrition, I'm yet to meet a single doctor or nutritionist at the medical facility who is as knowledgeable as simple me, who educates myself through YouTube. It's a horror story to me. What are they saying? What are they serving to patients during chemo? I mean, we're so grateful for them serving us food during chemo administering, but what are they serving us? They're serving us poison, which was authorized by licensed nutritionist. My hair stand up when I had any, and it's just not right. It's just not right. Every doctor, every oncologist that I met, when I asked them for the nutrition advice, they said, "Oh, you can eat anything."
Here you go.
So educate yourself, be your own an advocate. Yes, you can't come to the doctor and expect them to be right. It's just one of the opinions, and you're the judge of all of it all. You're the ruler.
So along those lines, I'm a vegetarian and having gastric cancer and having had my stomach removed or 80% of my stomach removed, there were no guidelines for me on what I could eat. Throughout chemo and immunotherapy, they were like, we just need you to eat something so you have energy. Now I'm in the survivorship phase and we have a lot of gaps in care for survivors. What do we do now that we're out of treatment? How do we prevent other comorbidities? How do we prevent any cardiotoxicity that might come from all the food that we're eating and all of this, I mean, terrible food that they allowed me to eat? And I find a huge gap in that space for survivors. They are with you until you finish treatment. And then once you're done with treatment, you're kind of on your own. And you have to now seek out all other specialists to deal with all the other side effects that you have from just being a cancer survivor. And when you talk to your doctor, they say, unfortunately, this is the life of a cancer survivor.
One of the, I think it's a sort of unique unmet need, but maybe it's more common than that, is that cancer patients, you know, they live a life. We live a life. I mean, my wife lived a good life, and so we travel a lot of times. And one of the big unmet needs was that when my wife traveled, she liked to get hydration. She needed hydration to go through chemo. So IV fluids she would try to do three times a week, and that really helped her a lot. It really gave her a lot more energy and everything like that. So we would try to. Our doctor said when you travel, go get IV fluids periodically. We found that it's more difficult than that because if you go to the emergency room, they don't have a clue what to do. They do a full workup on you and they scare the heck out of you because they say, do you know you've got stage 4 cancer and you get your affairs in order and you're going to die? And it's like, no, that's not the case. You know, we're living a life. We're getting treatment. We have hope, and there's options available out there. So, at some point, my wife decided that instead of doing that, she was just going to go to an IV bar and get hydration fluids that way, and that actually worked a lot better. So I think there needs to be some understanding in the medical community that for things like hydration and fluids and travel, we need to make it easier on cancer patients to get the kind of supportive care when they're traveling.
I'll just piggyback one other thing on all of that. My oldest daughter had her gastrectomy this past July, and she does have a local oncologist within my cancer center, and then also her surgeon, Dr. Davis at NIH. And, you know, the guidelines for when you get iron infusions with a gastrectomy is very different than the guidelines for the general population and therefore what insurance will cover. So you just have to be ready to know what the guidelines are and fight your insurance company and make sure that they know, you know, we have different guidelines, here they are. And, you know, my daughter should be able to get her iron infusion when she needs it at our local center. Luckily, we're only an hour from NIH. But what if she gets a job in, you know, in West Virginia at some point? She needs to be able to get what she needs to get when she needs to get it based on the guidelines that NIH has come out with. And that's a problem. And, you know, who wants to fight that all the time? So.
Any other comments before we move on to the next question? The celebrity who took the selfie in my phone, is your name John? Yes, you. Jeff. Would you like to share a comment? I haven't heard your wonderful voice yet.
So something that industry representatives need to know about gastric cancer patient journey. This is true about cancer in general. We as patients do not live in a neutral information environment. We live in an information environment that is filled to the brim with false information, misinformation, and disinformation by people who are trying to make money off of us. Finding Hope for Stomach Cancer as a group on Facebook was a breath of fresh air after the other groups that are filled with botnets of fake patients that say the same things over and over again, trying to sell something to us. The truth is that patients who follow, just in general in cancer, follow what their doctors say. About half of them live, about 5 years, and about half of them die. And that is the standard of care. That is just how it is. Cancer is tough. But those who ignore what their doctors say die at twice the rate. And only 25% of them live for about the same time. So what I would want the industry to know is that this swath of very friendly frauds is there. And we have to be better at being very friendly truth tellers early, before the frauds get there. And that is a gap that is there.
Thank you, Jeff. And you kind of teed up the next question, so thank you for that. What is something you want industry representatives to know about the gastric cancer patient journey? And when we say industry representatives, I'm sure maybe some of us are thinking pharma, but let's talk about the medical providers, let's talk about the insurance providers, let's talk about the pharmaceutical companies and the pharmaceutical supporters.
Well, everybody's different, which is one thing, but everybody's life also happens as they have stomach cancer, and their needs change. You know, Kirsten was talking about her migraines, and there's certain protocols that you have to follow through for your insurance company or with pharmacy or something like that. And I know if you have to go out of town and you need to get more medication to be able to go out of town, you can't, you know, or lately my mother died and my doctor wanted me to go on a little bit more anti-anxiety medication to handle it because she wants me to be very, very calm all the time. It wouldn't get approved, you know, to increase the option of having more anti-anxiety medication. So it's hard for me to convey or to try and figure out how to get the journey and what's going on behind the scenes with the chemo and everything up front with the life. You know, life is happening to all of us, and it's very strict. The leeway is very narrow of what you're allowed to do.
And my point follows up to yours. It was very hard having insurance at the table and making tough decisions, right? So there's so few options with gastric cancer. And I wanted my dad to live, and insurance wanted to save money. And it was just that friction all the time to get pre-approvals, have to defend ourselves. Okay, my dad is getting the power port, not the regular port, the power port. I think that was just super frustrating because it's like it was already really tough making these decisions, and then having insurance denying it was so tough.
Yeah.
I realized to my horror, I said some numbers wrong. So I want to correct them right now. I blame chemo brain, but just bear with me. 25% of cancer patients die within, I think it was 72 months, a little bit over 5 years, as long as they just go for oncology in general. And 50% of those who say, heck with it, I'm not doing that, I'm doing something else. Those are the ones. So those are the two numbers. It's not 50% of people dying in 25. 50% of people that don't do what the doctors say in general, they die 25% that follow it. It's actually, if you just do one thing, that's the best thing you could possibly do. Follow your doctor in general.
What did you say earlier? Friendly truth sharing? What did you say earlier? You said we should be friendly. Does anybody remember what you said?
Tellers of truth. Yeah, we need.
But you said friendly, right?
Well, early, friendly, kind. Yeah, all those things. Early.
I think that was a perfect example.
All in the adjectives.
And my apologies.
I have no idea what the answer is, but I think a lot of what we're highlighting here is if there's someone or entity or entities within the industry representative, quote unquote, that can help the average person navigate the medical industrial industry. And what I mean by that is all of this, the insurance, the doctors, and so on, to help bring common language or something just to navigate through, because there are other challenges in life where you can go to a central repository, if you will, and get assistance to help you navigate certain challenges. This is so complex. And it's a horrendous battle. And to Aki's point, having to navigate everything down to what port your father should have to dealing with an insurance company and fighting against it. I realize there's all these federal regulations and what you can disclose and can't disclose, and we get wrapped around the axle on that. But there has to be a way, if someone can help solve for that, whether it be pharma or whomever, whether it be Moffitt or whether it be whomever, there has to be a way to, or an insurance company that can help you with that. Now, there's someone that would be, you're in good hands if they can figure that out and help you navigate. And I realize there's a push and pull, and they're trying to not pay, but there's ways that you can, I think there's an opportunity out there, to say the least, to help folks navigate through all this, because the last thing you want to help deal with, you're in this journey, it's almost like 10% of the time you're undergoing treatment, and 90% of the time you're fighting against the industry that's it's pushing back against you, and it should be the other way around.
Yeah. Thank you. One over here.
And also, what I would like the industry representatives to understand is, we're finding this more and more in younger people, and more people in general, but I'd be hearing more and more younger people getting it, and to hear like 16 is like insane to me. Like, and then you hear their grandparents or their parents live to 195. Well, what's the difference? The food we're eating. And it's like, and I know that's like a huge hurdle we have to get over, and it's a lot of different steps with it. It's political, it's the FD, all that stuff. I understand, but nutritionally, we need to do so much better. And like, just be like, oh, you're going to get penalized if you want to make your own, like, save rainwater or to garden. I don't know if you guys ever heard about that, but I heard people are getting like fined if the government finds out that I'm not trying to be like a conspiracist or nothing. I'm just, it's just like, but it's just mind boggling that like the older generations, like my aunt, she lived to 95 years old, and she got over polio as a baby. She had skin cancer multiple times. She was going blind, but she lived to 95, and she would literally, she almost ran down her halls all the time. I was like, can you not do this? Like but not just nutritionally, but also financially. Like, there needs to be more grants readily available to the patients, and research is obviously very important as well. Like, we need more grants to help assist financially for people, because it's hard out here. And especially the people who are single and get this, like, and then that goes with insurance. Can they afford to get someone to come in and help them? Can they afford to stay at a facility? It's insane. It's just, and I want them to understand that. Like, they should, when prisons open, they have people go in and pretend to be prisoners to be like, oh, like, how's it feel? They should have people do that when they want to open and start new things for this industry as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
What about you?
So where Alicia goes, couldn't be happier. They've been extraordinarily kind to her. open to her seeing other doctors, whatever. We've done a lot of different things. But the other thing is that they have one dietitian and one social worker for the entire center, and they treat every kind of cancer, and they're extraordinarily well known in our area. And it's just a lot of work on their part, and they helped Alicia with grants. They helped her, and I can't imagine. I know she doesn't have time to help all these people, but if she could, she would. So there needs to be more funding for people to help those people who
Community.
are in these situations.
Come back there.
Like, you sure you want to hear from me again? Okay, I'll try to make this brief again. But one, I think just more transparency about what's happening in research would be really helpful. I know everybody, again, is different in terms of the amount of information that they want to have, but I do feel like it's just, I've gone down the rabbit hole on Google Scholar and PubMed, and I'm fortunate to have a sibling who is in the medical field and has been, using her networks to get information. Obviously, the support group has been so helpful, but I'm still very much in the dark about what my options are going forward. And I'm aware of the statistics for my particular type of cancer not being great, and really want to know what I can do to advocate if there are trials, et cetera. It shouldn't be, figuring out from a support group, like, what are the trials that are going on? There should be like a flow charts, and maybe these exist, for what types of possibilities there are out there around drugs, trials, access to doctors, et cetera. And the other thing I wanted to add was, this is maybe a more personal thing, but it's really hard when you walk into an office and someone's like, but you look great and you're so young, as if those are things that are just going to magically make my cancer go away. And just to remember that we're whole people and that we live lives that are very complicated, and this sucks. And having some empathy goes a long way.
Again, just briefly about the language. I am not a gastric cancer patient. I'm a person who lives with cancer. That does not define me, and it pisses me off. And the other thing is that word journey is just BS. That's a journey is a vacation in Belize, and that is not this. Just tell the truth in simple language. Call it an illness, call it a chronic disease. Don't lie to me. So.
I saw there's a hand over here.
I'm going to pile onto the insurance industry just a little bit more. But one of the experiences I had early in my diagnosis, my doctor ordered a Guardant 360 test. My insurance company refused to pay for that test. They said it was not necessary. And I appealed that decision, and it went to a doctor who said this test was frivolous and we're not going to pay for it. This doctor being paid by the insurance company to review it. So there was no one that I could find in that process of trying to get that test paid for that was familiar with gastric cancer. This was just a test that was new to them. They didn't understand the value, so they weren't going to pay for it. And when you're fighting a disease like this, the last thing you need to do is go to battle with, or face financial ruin to get the kind of treatment that you really need. And I think that is one of the biggest problems that people with any kind of terminal illness face today.
I have a couple of things. First, to add to that, my husband's CDH1 positive, and both of our children are also. So our daughter had her gastrectomy, and then opted for the bilateral mastectomy and reconstruction. She was active duty military at the time of diagnosis. So the insurance company, TRICARE, they said her bilateral mastectomy and reconstruction were not a necessary procedure, not medically necessary. So, they'd rather her get cancer first, go through the chemo, go through all the treatment instead of trying to prevent that. And that is, I just think that's unacceptable. Luckily, City of Hope is awesome, and they said they would duke it out with the insurance company and not, we didn't have to worry about it. So, but my second thing is also for the industry, for doctors in general, that I know we as patients don't expect them to know everything, but we had a very good experience with my husband's first surgeon. As soon as he heard CDH1, sent us to Dr. Wu. She's the expert on this. I will not be able to do your surgery as well as she can. She's the cutting edge doctor in this, so go there. And I think more doctors need to be willing to send patients to someone else that and it's not anything against them. I mean, you can't possibly know everything from medical school about every condition, but being willing to network within themselves with each other for the patient's best interest.
Yeah. Thank you. One more up here.
Raise higher.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, I'm kind of repeating myself again, but talking about Garden and the insurance companies and my doctor, and they don't want to they don't want you to get these tests because they're so darn expensive. And I just so happened to be at my cancer center, and there was a pharma fair for the doctors. But I just talked to them anyway. And the Garden representative was there. And I said, hello, I'm a gastric cancer patient. And I did the Garden one time, but my doctor doesn't want me to keep getting it. It's too expensive. And she said to me, she told me flat out, she said, we don't even have a collections department. Just get the test every 3 months. We're going to get what we can from your insurance company and then throw the bill in the trash. She told me that. Yeah, we didn't pay you. They want, it's a newer thing. They want it being used. They want it to be used so it can be successful, so that then in the future, the doctors will see the benefit, because we can't wait for these trials to pan out. We don't have that luxury of waiting for trials to pan out, that's all well and good, but it's not realistic. So, that was my experience with Garden, and they've been great. I've never gotten a bill. I doubt they're getting much money from my insurance company, and they don't seem to care.
We have time for one more comment. Who wants to take us home?
Just listening to a lot of people talk about insurance and their doctors and stuff like that. On the flip side of that, it almost makes me feel like we hit the cancer lottery with our doctors. We got super lucky, got Dr. Wu at City of Hope, and I know that not everybody has the same experience that we did at City of Hope, but we're very thankful for that. But in the insurance side, yeah, we haven't had to deal with basically anything. I mean, it's been smooth sailing for us. I have a lady that her name's Leanna. She calls me like every 6 weeks and she's a nurse, and she asks me how I'm doing and if I have any questions and if she can help me in any way. I mean, it's like, she doesn't help me directly, but just having her call me and check on me and stuff like that, it gives me, peace of mind with my insurance company. So if any insurance companies are listening out there, that really helps people out. I think it helps me out. So that's about it.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to everyone for sharing your voices, sharing your experience, your beliefs, your thoughts, your feelings during this town hall session today. I feel like I learned a lot. I always tell Aki that anytime that I can be in the presence of others, I feel it's an opportunity for me to learn. So thank you for leading from a place of empathy. Thank you for continuing to support each other. And I look forward to continuing to learn more from you all. And I cannot solve all these issues that were shared today. And as I started in the beginning, as somebody who's also benefiting from patient advocacy and dealing with our own, I understand your issues, and I just hope that you feel comforted in knowing that you have a support group. So thank you all very much for the time today, and I will give it back to Camilla. Thank you.